Well, it's a documentary about a 10-year-old boy whose name is Oleg, who lives with his grandmother Alexandra in a small house near the front line of the Ukrainian war. And the film follows their life and what happens to them as roughly 1.5 years of the war. I got interested in their story because I made 2 short documentaries with kids that had very safe lives before this one, and I realized that there's so many kids who actually has lives that's full of turmoil and full of chaos, and I got interested to know, if you're a kid in that age and you grow up in a front line, where do you go to find some kind of stability and some sense of comfort that you need to grow up as a full human being, I think. And that's what led me to Ukraine. I just went down to the southern part of the front line actually with my fixer, and we went into public schools to ask if we could talk to pupils who came from villages that was either close to shelling or had been shelled. And we talked to a bunch of kids, and I usually, the last question would be, can you try to describe to me how it feels like when you're afraid? And not a lot of the kids could put that feeling into words until I met Oleg. And he just looked at me, 10 years old, and he said, when they fire the cannons near my house, it's like there's this invisible hand that grabs into my chest and holds my heart. And when the grenades start to explode for each one of them, it squeezes my heart a little bit more until it's just small and cold. And then he smiled, a beautiful smile, and I knew, like, this is the kid, It wasn't difficult at all to gain Oleg's trust. I think he saw me as something from Mars. I'm, with a big camera and following him, and he was just instantly curious, I think. It took a lot longer to gain the trust of Alexandra, who's his guardian, but that was because, I think, at that point in time, there was a very persistent rumor in the small villages near the front line that there were people posing as NGOs who was actually there to steal organs from kids and sell them on the black market. So it wasn't until the 3rd or 4th trip when somebody sent us, somebody sent her a picture of us sitting eating, this Soviet-like slob in the local school, where she was kind of like, no, nobody would go through that. And then she invited us to eat with her. And when you sit down to eat with people, that's where things start to soften up, yeah. To go home every time I was done filming, I have a kid who's also 10 years old, much like Oleg. Saying goodbye to Oleg, leaving him in a place where I knew, that there were bombardments from time to time, and also growing some kind of friendship and relationship to him and Alexandra. Saying goodbye to them, and then one day later, I'm hugging my own child, they're the same age, back home in safe Copenhagen. I think that was absolutely the most challenging thing for me, because I'm out of their world and there's nothing I can do. I can just read, on the military briefings if their village had been hit or not. I prefer this style. Some of the films that impressed me the most is the Fly on the Wall documentaries, because I'm allowed to travel to a place, almost like a voyeur, to see people's inner feelings and tragedies and happiness, just bloom in front of me. And I am able, as the silent watcher, to gauge my own opinions, which is not influenced by a director who's standing, and they're interacting with him or her. So I absolutely prefer, the cinema verite style of documentary myself, and that's also why I strive to do this. It seems to me, I hope it's true, that it's gaining a lot more, status, so to speak. It's getting a lot of attention. Probably, I think, because we're getting even more, starved for slices of life and portrayals of reality amidst this world where we can go to the internet and find, fake news and everything. I think people are getting more and more interested in documentary, but also because documentary has evolved with the new equipment, so it becomes much more cinematic and much more watchable.